Hi, I'm Blake Pellerin, and I currently serve as the president of Arrows Rugby Football Club here in Houston, Texas. Our mission is that we're a Catholic community with the purpose of forming men in Christian virtue through competitive rugby. One of the things that we do here in the club is provide some spiritual formation programs. In the summers, we do summer philosophy. This segment right here, is our sixth and final segment of our summer philosophy series entitled The 5 Ways of Thomas Aquinas. So that is the 5 ways of proving the existence of God. We were opened in this series by Father Gregory Pine, joining us to introduce us to the thought of Thomas Aquinas. And then we had Arrows men introduce each of the 5 ways in a presentation format with some discussion. So if you're interested in looking through and catching up on each of those 5 ways in the intro session that we had, I'd encourage you to go earlier in the playlist here and look for those sessions as well. The introduction and then ways 1, 2, 3, and 4. We were not able to record the 5th way session that we had live. So what I would like to do instead to wrap up our series here of the 5 ways is to borrow from someone who a lot of us in the club enjoy listening to quite a bit, Matt Fradd. He has a podcast called Pints with Aquinas, and a few years back he helped produce a book called The 5 Ways of Thomas Aquinas, St. Thomas Aquinas, which was, I believe he contributed the commentary to this project, and it was designed by Ben West and produced and published by Matt Martinussen. I'm sure I have messed up the pronunciation there, apologies. So I will have an extra link at the end in some of the notes of this video for anybody that wants to learn a little bit more about Matt Fradd's work and that sort of thing. But so what I'm going to do here is just borrow from his work directly and share here, but know that none of this is mine. It's Matt Fradd's. I'll start with the text from the Summa Theologiae of St. Thomas Aquinas to begin with the 5th way. And the 5th way reads, "The 5th way is taken from the governance of the world. We see that things which lack intelligence, such as natural bodies, act for an end, and this is evident from their acting always or nearly always in the same way, so as to obtain the best result. Hence, it is plain that not fortuitously, but designedly, do they achieve their end. Now, whatever lacks intelligence cannot move towards an end, unless it be directed by some being endowed with knowledge and intelligence, as the arrow is shot to its mark by the archer. Therefore, some intelligent being exists by whom all natural things are directed to their end, and this being we call God." Okay, so I'll move now to Matt Fradd's commentary here, which is just a few pages, so I'll share Matt's commentary now. "Life can feel chaotic, but when you take a long look at the world around us, you see that life is actually very predictable. Gravity always pulls objects towards the center of the earth unless something else intervenes. When conditions are the same, water always boils and freezes at the same temperatures. In fact, so predictable are many of the workings of nature that scientists can formulate laws to describe them. But these events are not merely predictable as if by chance, rather they are predictable because all of creation is goal-oriented, intrinsically ordered towards certain ends. We see this most clearly among our fellow men. Human beings envision their goals, deliberate about them, and act to secure them. But we see something analogous to this through the visible world. If you saw a target with a bunch of arrows in the bullseye, you would know an intelligence caused them to land in that spot. Just so when we see something acting to achieve a goal or end, it suggests that some intelligent cause is directing it to that end. Of course, arrows don't normally fly into bullseyes, but maybe it's just too much to speak of intelligence at work in the world more broadly. Perhaps acorns just naturally become oak trees, and water naturally boils at certain temperatures, and no further explanation is needed. But here's the thing, the laws of nature, which is what people mean by something happening naturally, merely describe how natural things regularly act. They don't make those things to act in a certain way. The laws of nature are not a complete causal explanation of the regularity we see around us. Rather, they are examples of that regularity, testimony to it, that still require an explanation. What is more, the regularity cannot be explained by chance either. Chance by its very nature suggests events that do not happen regularly, exceptions from the rule, or fortuitous windfalls. If you walk out to the bus stop not knowing the bus schedule, and the bus arrives the moment you get there, you would say it was by chance you got on the bus as soon as it arrived. But this chance event was only possible because of a series of underlying goal-oriented causes that are not byproducts of chance. For example, the bus always runs according to a certain schedule, and you walk according to a certain pace. Just as chance alone cannot explain why the bus always, or almost always, arrives at a stop at a certain time, chance cannot explain why fire always ignites the gas in the bus's engine, or why blood in your body flows in a specific direction as you walk. These regular patterns of causes which facilitate chance events still must be explained. Like chance, evolution does not explain this regularity, but presupposes it. It may explain why organisms change over time and become more complex, but it doesn't explain the predictable ways they interact with each other or with other objects and predictable forces in nature. In fact, all of these directions towards an end represent a potential that becomes actual. Without even getting into the big-ticket items, even simple particles or relatively uncomplex celestial bodies carry the point. An electron and a moon both have the potential to occupy certain spaces, but they always occupy them in predictable orbits around nuclei and planets, respectively. In other words, they only actualize specific potencies for movement and change, and those potencies are actualized in a regular pattern. But potencies can only be actualized by something outside of the thing, since nothing can actualize itself. Moreover, actualizing potential for regular ends will ultimately require a kind of intelligence, because only intelligence can envision an end that does not exist and guide something toward that end. Objects like electrons and moons do not have intelligence, so they cannot envision and pursue the ends which we observe them to possess. As a result, there must be an intelligence that orders these unintelligent causes towards intelligible goals or ends, but this intelligence could not be limited in some way, because then it itself would have its own potential to direct the goal-oriented pursuits of other things in a variety of ways. And so in order to explain why this intelligence acts towards some ends and not others, it would have to be actualized by an even higher intelligence. But just as there cannot be an infinitely long chain of causes for the world's motion or existence, there cannot be an infinitely long chain of intelligences supplying the causal regularity we see in the world. Instead, the intelligence that actualizes all potencies towards predictable ends must have no potency, but instead be pure actuality, or being itself. This supreme intelligence that exists as unlimited being can only be God. And thus concludes our summer philosophy series for 2021, the 5 Ways of Thomas Aquinas. Like I said, there is a series of these videos should be on YouTube still. So feel free to circle back to some of the other ones. So I would encourage anybody that wants to learn more about Thomas Aquinas, or at least go straight to the text of his writing to find the Summa Theologiae. It should be very easy to find online, the text itself. And if you're interested on the text of the 5 Ways itself, feel free to shoot us an email if you're interested in just a straight up text of the 5 Ways itself at club@arrowsrugby.com, or to myself, president@arrowsrugby.com. I'd be happy to send that just a PDF document to you. Or you should be able to search 5 Ways in the Summa Theologiae, and it will direct you to where that is in the Summa as well. If you're interested in learning more, a little bit more accessible level, which is where I'm still starting, Matt Fradd has a great podcast, Pints with Aquinas, that I mentioned before. I'd encourage you to check that out. I'll link to it in the notes here, and I'll also link to a book that he has that has some dialogue that feels like kind of a modern conversation around some of this, or a current day conversation around some of these concepts that I think could be helpful too. But I want to say a big thanks to Matt Frad and his team for allowing us to share this straight away. Also to Father Gregory Pine for joining us and introducing our session, and also the men that were involved in presenting some of these ways each individually, including Adam Smythe, Brian Smythe, Garrett Troutman, Richard Pagel, and Joe Cherney. So we really appreciate it, guys. Thank you for doing that. And that should be it. You can learn more about Arrows Rugby at www.arrowsrugby.com. Had a great series this summer. Hopefully we'll have another great one next summer over philosophy. And we are playing rugby and praying and working together to be better men for God, for our families, and for each other too. So I'd love to touch base with anyone that's interested to learn more about us as a club, and I hope that this series was very uplifting for you to raise your intellect to God and to higher things. So God bless, and thank you very much.